for my depression, a lot of it is just like taking that first step. Then it kind of just starts rolling and you can kind of get into it. But that first step feels impossible sometimes. Going to the gym, like, it forces you to drink water. When you are really depressed, really in the down, like trench part of where you are, it's like, that's something you forget to do.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Highest Version Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Philivong, and on this podcast, we talk about falling in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Today's guest is Wayland Lee. After learning more about Wayland, to me, he's kind of like the guy in the chair. He's the genius that knows all the schematics of the plan that's about to happen. He's the genius that knows mathematics, revamping electronics, wanting to help others, most importantly. He's had his fair share of experiences going through depression, finding a passion, struggling to open up to his peers, and self-compassion. And when he's not, dealing with this journey we call life, he's a beast on the basketball court, and he's someone that you do not want to go up against in the paint. So let's welcome Wayland. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I hope that intro made you feel, a little more confident there.
Yeah, well, I think you're being a bit exaggerating with the beast in the paint and all that. It's like, I'm still learning. So.
No, it's you. I've seen you grow from playing basketball.
Grown,
playing basketball with one another. So it's great to see you just grow in that sense. So yeah, man. Thank you for coming on, and I'm glad that you are hopping on to have this kind of conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm always glad to be here.
So before we get into my questions for you, I'm going to feature the Funko Pop of the episode, and that is Kronk from Cusco's New Groove. So the reason why I picked Kronk is because obviously Kronk is a very big guy, and you're very tall and big guy. But also, like, at the end of the day, like, Kronk just wants to help others, and he's a huge softie, and nothing that there's wrong about being soft, but like, this is when I thought of a Funko Pop person for you, Kronk came to mind. So yeah, I hope you kind of was able to see that connection there.
I really like that. I actually really like that. That's really good.
All right, so getting into your story, Wayland, growing up as a first gen, being youngest in the family, how was that like? Was there any pressures that came along with with being first gen and the youngest in your family?
It's kind of weird because it's almost like different kind of pressure, because being the youngest, that also means there's an oldest. I have an older sister. And so a lot of the pressures fall there for being like, she's first gen. She's also the first to pursue higher education and stuff like that. It's like, also, we're born here. It's opportunities. A lot of that fell on her. And, for me, that's why I find her a big role model, and I respect her a lot. And so a lot of the pressures fell on her, I felt like. But for me, I guess it seemed that a lot fell to me to like follow, because I feel like I don't want to make it too much about her, I guess, but I have a lot of respect for her, and I want to follow in her footsteps. I think she's doing amazingly. Like, and I'm just like, being the youngest, sometimes I feel like I am allowed to get away with other things, and I just feel like I'm like, it doesn't feel great to be like, she dealt with it first, and then she's imparting knowledge on me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, damn, I'm the one that has to, I'm like benefiting from all this, I guess.
Yeah.
And so the challenges are, I guess, are more like internal, where
right, not
necessarily external, where everyone's like babying me because I'm the youngest, and I was like, oh, it's fine, but I'm like, I'm like almost advantaged in the family almost, and it doesn't feel great sometimes, but or like maybe I'm not living up to all the advantages and help my family's providing.
Yeah. So internally, does it feel like you are constantly like comparing yourself to your sister?
Yeah. That's definitely been more common previously, but yeah, there's always this comparison, and I know comparison's not a great thing to really do, especially with things like this, because everyone has their own lives. But Yeah, I don't know. It just happens a lot. It just happens instinctually,
Right.
especially with like siblings and stuff.
Right. Have you ever had a conversation with your sister just about your internal struggles about that comparison?
Yeah, actually, I think of all the people in my family and in my life, like I think the person I've opened up to most about this is my sister. So we have a close relationship, and that's helped a lot with all this, like internal monologue and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess it's still there. Like no matter how much we talk about it, no matter how much I try to understand it or anything, it's still there. So
Right. So I guess how did that conversation go when you did it take a while for you to open up to your sister about what's happening in your head?
I I guess it depends on how you define like a while, because I will say like she's the first one I definitely opened up to, and when I started opening up, it all basically happened or came flooding out, came like pretty immediately, and
Right.
I was like, and I guess it also helps that I feel like she can understand a lot of things as well, since we are literally in the same family.
Yeah.
We're pretty close in terms of age as well. She's like 2 or 3 years, so it's like it is very easily for both of us to relate to on many things. So yeah, I guess it was pretty easy. It started off like, especially when like mental health stuff started cropping up more prominently. I talked to her first about it when I was like, when visible signs of like being in a bad spot happened. I talked to her about it 1st, and that's usually kind of how it got started. Everything
Yeah.
came after that.
So I know you said like you were struggling with it, and then once you talked to your sister, floodgates opened, and then that kind of your conversation with your sister kind of helped you on a path to growth. Can you remember what one thing your sister said to you that kind of has really helped you at this point?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that like she's reiterated before, and it's that well, first of all, struggle is something that people are very good at hiding. Like so, she obviously has struggled a lot. From my point of view, I'm like, oh, she's doing great, and cognitively, I know, everyone's struggling with things. Everyone's has their own problems, and everyone's trying to handle them. But she's just reminding me that that's something that's very common, especially nowadays, and
Yeah.
with everything going on, it's like it's pretty common to not feel great all the time. And she's just like, that's fine, and also reminding me that having the emotional intelligence, self-awareness to think about this actively is a good thing as well. So
Yeah.
that's a good sign typically. Yeah, and so these just are things generally to help remind me specifically that I am still doing the right thing. I'm still trying my best. I'm still doing what I should be doing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, or who's to say? But I am trying to convince myself of that, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your sister's got a good point. It's like, you are trying your best, and your best is enough, truly. And we all go through certain struggles that no one knows about. It's like because of this kind of digital age that we're in, right, with social media, and I don't know how much you pay attention to social media, but I mean, everyone, it's like you're not gonna post a picture of you like, not smiling, right? Every picture's always gonna be like you smiling, kind of showing that kind of a happy life that you have, but inside, like, there's not everyone's perfect, and I just feel like I have seen that with, and through my experiences too, and seeing how when I would get jealous of, another guy, and I'd be like, oh, like the dude has no struggles at all. Yeah. But when I got to know him a little bit more, he started to speak out about how he's gotten to the point where he is, and just the trials and tribulations that made him the person that he is today. And it kind of opened my eyes, like, why was I jealous over this guy? And it was because it's just because he's a person too.
Yeah.
And that's all we have to like really think about is no matter how it looks like on the outside, we don't know what people are dealing with inside. I know a great mentor of mine actually said that, when we compare ourselves to others, we're comparing our insides to their outside.
Oh, yeah, that's
So I was like, oh shit, yeah. She's pretty much right about that.
yeah, that's pretty good.
So I guess with your sister, you guys are being close, and your sister wasn't the one, putting pressure on you. Did any pressure come from your parents as well, or was it all just, just on you?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of it probably did come from parents. I don't think purposefully either. Like, I recognize that there's like stereotypes with like, tiger parents and stuff like that. And I genuinely don't think it would be right for me to say that about my parents. Like, my parents were very supportive and kind, but there's just, but they also struggle in like the emotional intelligence department, I guess I'll say.
Yeah.
Something like that. And because of that, they inadvertently put pressures. Not that they necessarily mean to or anything, but it still is there. It still puts pressure and it still affects me. And I guess it being inadvertent is annoying in a different way, because it's like, I know they don't, it's not malicious in any way. They truly do care, but they just don't understand, I guess, how to best help in some cases.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, and a lot of it is like, just my parents aren't the most well off. Like, we grew up relatively humble and stuff like that, and it was made well aware from like a young age for me that, like, we are not in a great spot and like stuff like that, and that puts pressures on me as well, because like, I would ideally want to help out.
Right.
But then once again, being the youngest,
Yeah.
circling back to that, they're like, oh, don't worry about it. But it's like, it's this conflicting like thought of like, I feel that pressure, but also you're telling me not to worry about it. It makes it harder to, I guess, understand. And it's also like, there's just other things that like my parents, they've went through a lot as well. Like, I've recognized that. And especially both my mom and dad. Like, my mom, she grew up in Cambodia. I'm not sure if you know anything historically about that. There was a dictator named Pol Pot. She grew up during that. So basically, she fled the country as a refugee and came to the United States at a young age. And so she's seen and dealt with like a lot of stuff, like labor camps and like family deaths and stuff like that, from a very young age. And my dad, kind of similar. He grew up very poor. He wasn't able to get to college, and so he came to the U.S. for opportunity and stuff like that, because that's the story for a lot of people.
Right.
And basically, they've had to like do all these things from relatively young ages to like work very hard and get where they are, and do pretty well considering all these circumstances. And because those circumstances what they've dealt with are there, it's like, what's my excuse? Kind of. It's like, It's like, I am in a relatively stable family that care and support me, but I'm still struggling, and it doesn't feel great when it's like put out like that, I guess.
Right. Yeah, no, I could definitely resonate with that. My parents also have escaped conflict within their country as well, getting to a better life. And I know how that feels, man. I know how it feels to, when you start off in your life, that you have a lot of more opportunity than them. Also, for me growing up, like I like to say I grew up in middle class. Like, my parents did very well for themselves and kind of created a life for me and my brother that's very, I didn't have to worry about money. But it doesn't say that what they said to me, like you said, it's not malicious intent, but they're trying to show you like, this is what I had when I was your age. So
right, yeah.
Don't like making sure you take care of every opportunity. And as an 8-year-old, you don't really understand what that means. All you can do is internally take in their trauma, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if your parents reminded you a lot about their experiences, but I know that was something that once I was told about how they came here to the U.S., that I kept hearing that over and over again. And that's where my start of internal pressure started. And that's where I started to fall into always having to get an A, always, not showing any struggles. And like, when I would be afraid of, getting anything less than an A, I would just be like angrily in my room and not showing my parents and showing them how upset I was, right? Did your parents constantly remind you about that, or is it a one-time thing and
I
then
mean,
it's just
definitely I relate to that. And like it's the classic, going to school through this winter storm, uphill both ways. It's like, and that's what they dealt with. And now just, it's a class. It's almost like a meme at this point. Like within like, like Asian communities or even like immigrant communities is like,
yeah.
your parents, they like fought off bears as children or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, and as we grow up, we understand there's a bit of hyperbole there, but it's still from a young age, like you said, you're like, oh, okay. So they had a different experience than mine, basically, is what you think. And it just like, it's once again, just like, what is my excuse? And to that effect, like, during younger grades, like I basically was always doing very well in school. Which it basically came to a head in like later high school. And like, that's where all this kind of started really coming up and like affecting me a lot. Like which, makes, I kind of sense like developmentally. Cause like that's high school is a very tumultuous time for many people. Like
sure.
You're supposed to be figuring out like where you're going as an adult at the age of like 17. And it's like,
it's crazy, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So crazy.
It's like, it's just crazy. That's all. But yeah.
So I guess have you ever had a conversation with your parents just about like, hey, like, things that you've been going through, but also like kind of taking away that, not looking at, I'm trying to phrase this in a way where like, because when you have this kind of idea of what they've been through and like you kind of, I don't know if you ever felt like you resented them a little bit just because of how many times they've brought up their experiences to you.
Yeah, yeah. I get what you mean by the wording, because it's you're not trying to like you love your family, but it's like it really grinds you down sometimes, like how many times and just like over and over again. It really grinds at you, and I kind of get what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's and once again it's like a double-edged sword, because since generally speaking we are more in tune with emotions and think about it, and like it's like it feels even worse. Well, for me anyway. I don't want to speak for others, but just like when you start feeling this like resentment or this like annoyance or whatever you'd call it, it's like once again it comes up to your mind. It's like, why am I feeling this though? Because they've done so much for me still.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't feel fair, but it also still it's like it's just double edged. It's a catch-22, right?
Right. Yeah. Have you ever had a conversation with them just about just what you've been going through and because of what they instilled in you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I've ever told them like directly like it's what they've instilled in me necessarily. I have talked to them about like what I've gone through and how I feel, and even like sometimes like I've said that like things that you think are helping aren't necessarily helping for me. And while I understand you're trying to help, like sometimes it just doesn't sometimes. So yeah, I've had that conversation. I genuinely think that there is a difficulty on their part in understanding certain things, certain concepts. And that makes these conversations almost stop at a certain point of like how deep we can go and how much understanding we can actually like, I guess like expand, like grow or whatever, like let them not, like try to make them understand more, which is also partially why I usually talk to my sister more often, because she understands more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it's like, I don't know. I have tried multiple times to like try to get them to learn more, and it's it's like that saying of like, can't teach an old dog new tricks, which is, I think, I can get into this later, but I don't like overgeneralized statements of like that. Like that's like an extreme statement that says like every old dog can't learn a new trick. It's like, I doubt that. Like that doesn't seem completely true. But it gets a bit frustrating sometimes when you have to talk about the same stuff over and over again to remind them like, this is how it's feeling, this is how it works.
Yeah.
And then next time, either an argument happens or I'm just feeling down and they ask, you have to kind of start over from a certain point again and explain it all over again. And even that gets a bit tiresome as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've had that conversation with my parents too. I've actually had to admit to my mom that I was going to therapy, which is a very hard conversation for me.
Yeah.
Luckily that I'm glad you had your sister to kind of talk about your struggles with. For me, growing up, that was my friends. Because of certain turmoil that was happening in my family at that time, this is around high school, I would only go to my friends about anything that's happening in my life,
Yeah.
Dinner table conversation was like, oh, how was school? Good. And then I would be like just looking at the TV because I know something happened that day and I didn't want to get, into it because I know that they wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
And I felt that way too. I felt that way that like, oh, I can't teach them new ways of thinking. But I remember when I talked to my mom about me going to therapy, and honestly, I was forced to have that conversation just because I was going to therapy through school. And once COVID hit and I had to go back home, I couldn't be on the school's insurance anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, at this point, like I have to use the insurance I am with my family. And that was a hard conversation for me. My mom put the blame on herself, which I felt was like, whoa, like I did not think at all like she would put the blame on herself for it. But she put the blame on herself because she felt like, oh, like what did I do wrong? What I gave my kids everything, right? More opportunity than I've ever had before. So why are they feeling this way? So it's kind of, she's trying to understand what happened and why I've gone into this like the depression state of mind. And after that day, actually, she went to the insurance company and like, so like, oh, like my son's really looking for therapy. Like, what can he do to like, speed up that process and get that going? So the fact that my mom even did that kind of, I think was a turning point for our relationship too, because it showed more of me and my feelings and, what I was going through. And yes, my mom still has her comments about like, oh, like, this is what life is, there's always struggles, always bad things. But I think that's where she kind of understood me a lot more and understood why I put so much pressure on myself. And she's seen it through all like my high school life. Like she's seen me go nights like where I've only slept for like 2 to 3 hours. Like I would be doing homework and then my mom goes to work at like 4 a.m.
Right. Yeah.
And I would like, one time I was up and she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I got to finish this project because internally I was pressuring myself to get that A.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could definitely resonate with, trying to have that conversation, being frustrated with them not changing, but even a little tweak of like understanding goes a long way for sure.
I don't know. It does go a long way. I'll admit that.
Yeah. But the fact that you're able to kind of even bring up your feelings with your parents is huge. Like that's a huge step, especially with how our parents think and stuff like that. It's all about, especially as males, right? Like we need to just get through whatever and not really talk about our feelings because feelings are weakness. So the fact that you're able to do that, very brave of you also. So I want to give you props to that, but also like a great step towards
props to you as well because you did the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm fearful of like just going on so many like rants and stuff because
okay.
like there's so many things that like you just mentioned. I'm like, yeah, and the whole thing about being like a male and stuff like that. It's just that annoys me as well because
it's okay, speak your mind, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like because like that's something as well that like I very well know was instilled by my parents and my dad and stuff like that because he just doesn't show his emotions at all. And obviously there's benefits to like stoicism and stuff like that. But to a certain extent, like it's also good to like show emotions and experience that and describe it or discuss it with others. And it's annoying because like that specifically, I was like, I genuinely feel like it would have been easier if I just didn't find it so hard to talk about things,
Yeah.
Which, speaking of, that's why like part of me is like, I should go into this podcast because I was like, it's a good opportunity to, talk about it and, kind of get more comfortable with that because obviously I'm more comfortable now than ever, but
Yeah.
it's been a long journey to get to that point, and I want to just keep being able to train that, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I'm happy that hopefully this podcast can do that. So with your, I guess speaking on that, you mentioned that you went through depression at a period in your life. How was that? What was the feelings that you were having? What was the event that kind of showed that, you were going through this dark part of your life?
Going through or went through, or I guess I don't want to be like deceptive in the sense that like I'm still dealing with depression right now. Like for everyone, it's a different experience. I understand some people can handle it relatively easily. That's unfortunately not my case. I've been handling it for a while, since I think I mentioned like towards the end of high school. I'm sure like a lot of like high school friends of mine can attest that there were periods like I was just gone, I think for collectively like months from school. Like I just wouldn't get out of bed, and all this came from like work piling up. Like I need to make up a lot of work, and I just it felt so difficult to even do anything really, which is a very common sign of depression. And my parents reacted differently. My mom, who I didn't know at the time, but she explained that yeah, she went to a psychiatrist, and she was like, okay, let's get you to see someone. And I did. I did eventually take some medications, which did not work, so that did not help that case either. But she tried, and that's appreciated. But basically, the medication didn't work. That made me feel worse because I was taking this thing that should be helping me. I wasn't feeling better, and that was a thing. Which, once again, too many tangents. Sorry.
No, I feel that because I know one of my I have an assumption of what you're about to say, but my cousin also has taken pills for going through his depression too, and that didn't help him either. And I'm just kind of confused on what's the purpose, and if they've shown not working, then maybe it does. Maybe I just have obviously a small sample size of who's it worked on and who hasn't, but it seems very weird to me that something that's supposed to help you doesn't.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, is that like with medication, there are many kinds, and that's the whole thing, is that it kind of sucks to deal with it, to be the one dealing with it. But there's a process of like, if this didn't work, then you talk to a psychiatrist, and then you try something else. You try a different treatment plan, which, when I say it out loud, and like that's like, that sound makes sense. Like if this treatment's not working, you try something else. But being the one experiencing it, you're just like, this sucks. Like now I try something else, and hopefully it works. But you have to wait a certain period, because usually it's about 2 weeks before you see results. And so you try that for 2 weeks, and if it doesn't work, then move on to a different thing. It's rough time. So that was on my mom's side anyway, for her reaction. She was like that. And I guess it helped in the sense that it got me to a point where I was like, okay, let's start seeking treatment. Like that, it got me to that point. My dad, on the other hand, he's a little bit more traditional, in medication in general is like also a thing of like
For sure, man. Yeah, Asians don't believe in medicine.
yeah, exactly. And he was like, he generally was like, well, what's wrong, what's going on? I was like, what, like, it's like sometimes like, oh, come on, you're strong, you can do this. And once again, not meant maliciously, but it's like, you're strong, you can do this. It's like it's like this is his expectation of like, you should be able to do this right now. Like, and that didn't, once again, in that state, that didn't really help either.
It does nothing.
Yeah.
Any of those statements does nothing to you when you're going through depression.
Yeah.
It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, he even said something that was like, this, I know, once again, not maliciously. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot for like all of these recounts, but he said something like, this is hurting me as well. Like, I don't want to see you like this. It's like, and I'm like, well, great. Now my problems are now affecting the people around me, and that doesn't feel great. And now I'm like, oh, well, now I don't feel better now. I just feel worse.
Yeah.
And, and I guess like I'm not sure if I answered the original question or whatever it was. Once again I feel like I'm just going on tangents talking about whatever's on my
No, it's
mind.
okay. No, I got you. I know
Yeah.
I know where you're going. You are along the same lines of the original question, which is like, how are you feeling events? You're just speaking about all the, things that you went through with having depression and experiences with your family. I mean, I think I know what you said about your dad. Obviously, he doesn't want to see you like this, and that's just him being a parent. And I know just the type of guy you are, and I know how that must have hurt you, even when going through. So like it spiraled you into like even a darker place.
Yeah.
But the fact that your dad even showed that kind of care, it kind of says a lot too, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like, I heard it when you said it, I was like, damn, that's just another like, that's another like knife that's in your back, right?
Yeah.
But it's looking like, as you reflected on it too, it's just like your dad was just showing genuine concern, and it wasn't to make you even more depressed. It was just, he cares about you and he wants you to get into a better path. So I think I'm still kind of trying to understand, what led to your depression. Was it the internalized pressure of doing well? And actually, was it that trying to just always be perfect in that kind of sense of success, educational wise?
Yeah. That definitely is kind of how it started, right? Because it was related to school. I was getting behind on schoolwork, and just feeling like it pile up and stuff. It felt like insurmountable, basically, and it just sucked to feel like that. And basically, that's kind of what started it. I don't know. I'm trying to look back. It's like I was very fortunate that reaching out to all my teachers and stuff like that, they seemed to understand. They were trying to help. And there's this thing that like it always feels like a double-edged sword, because like everyone once again around me cared and tried to help, and yet I still struggled so hard. Obviously, I got through high school. I got through high school, and I think that was I got through high school, and I guess the whole point is that like I got through high school without really addressing anything, which is I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I still felt like, okay, I managed to do it. I managed to overcome this. Now let's go to college.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just this desire to just do well. I wouldn't even say perfect. Like I was fine at that point. I was just like, I was fine with passing or getting a grade that would let me continue on.
Right.
For that brief period of time, because college it all came back again. Which I guess we can get into that. Because basically I went into college with this concept of like fear, almost, of like, remember what happened in high school, let's not have that happen again. It's a new start. And once again, I did very well for my first 2 years. I had a 4.0 literally the first 2 years.
Holy shit, that's really hard to do.
Yeah. And then junior year happened, and I was just like, and then one I think it was like one class I didn't do so well, and I was just like, man, that sucks. That did not feel great, but it's fine. I'm still doing well. But I think internally there was still something that just made it a little bit more difficult. And then I started struggling with more classes, which also makes sense because when you are further on in your career, you deal with more difficult classes.
Yep.
That just makes sense.
For sure. Yeah.
But, I was just like, why is this happening again? It was like, it was once again that governing of fear for myself. I was like, this feels very familiar territory for me. And I was just like, I don't want this to happen again. Right. Which I guess looking back on it was pretty good in the sense that like, it once again, that whole experience of high school, it gave me the self-awareness to be like, something's going on. And I actually reached out for help. Like I reached out through the school. I went to see therapy there. I made sure I reached back out for a different psychiatrist, for different medication.
Yeah.
And that's basically kind of summer or bringing us to where I am right now.
Yeah.
Like, therapy as well as different psychiatrists, different medication, and it's still generally working.
Right.
Day to day can vary, but yeah.
Does that combination, psychiatrist and therapy, do you feel like, was there a time where you just wanted to try therapy, or do you feel like the psychiatrist also helped too?
Yeah, so there was a period of time when I just did therapy alone, and once again, it definitely helped. I think, like, for me personally, it is like the combination of both is very important, because like during high school, it was just medication. During the beginning of like, I don't know why I just thought of it like college depression arc, I guess.
Yeah.
I was
no,
like,
no, it's okay. No, it's all right.
I was like, that's a very light way of putting it. But,
Yeah.
Before in the beginning of that, basically I did therapy alone, and then it was actually at the suggestion of my therapist. It was like, have you tried medication? I talked about my first experience with medication, of how it made me nervous, how I was scared, and she's like, all right, well, that is part of the process, and maybe we should try it again. So I did, and it kind of did help. So
Yeah.
I think the combination is good.
Yeah.
Basically.
I think in high school, like you said, you moved on to college. Obviously, it's a good mindset that you're like, oh, you're fresh start, new things, making sure it doesn't happen again. But then you just, it kind of felt like you added another stack of pressure of making sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And then obviously things were unaddressed. So going into college, like going to a different part of your life, like obviously it's gonna build up. And I felt that way too. When I was going through my junior year, like like I said, I only got 3 hours of sleep every day because I was I was trying to juggle a lot of things. I was playing basketball too, and like trying to do that was tough. And then there's definitely a lot of unaddressed things that happen, specifically in my social life. There was just like some drama, and then like this whole thing about perception about who I am to people that's really important to me.
Right. Yeah.
Which I'm trying to learn this year, to not care about what other people think of me and just understand what I think of myself. Because if we are so invested in what other people think of us, it's gonna wreck us. It's just gonna make us feel like we have to be perfect.
Yeah.
So going into your college arc, like it's very like, okay, like these are old feelings that trigger old behavior. So it's like this over and over cycle before. And I do want to comment on, what it feels like to go through depression as well. I know you said like, there'd be days that you don't want to get out of bed. I felt that too. There'd be days where I didn't want to go to class, but because of, I have to be good in school, I have to do all this stuff, I need to like just get myself up. And it's hard because a lot of people think like these motivational words and, forcing ourselves to do something versus just like laying in bed and all that stuff will help us, but it's not that easy. It takes a lot for us to, for those that are going through depression, or at least I'm not gonna speak for everyone, but for myself, like, dude, there'd be times like I just come back from classes, and this is during college, I'll just be in a fetal position because of how much was going on up in my head. And it's a surreal experience to go through. But I think once I went to therapy and seeked help, not being afraid to ask for help and not feeling like people are burdened if I do talk to them about this, it paid me on a paid me on a path that I am now, which is like that self-improvement, self-growth. So I'm glad that you are seeking out therapy. And along that path, obviously like there could be many times where you just let depression like consume you. Besides therapy and your psychiatrist, what other things have helped you along that path? So I'm just gonna focus on between high school and that college time. Like what was able to help you to get yourself going and going through all of daily life activities?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on one of them, was actually asking for help. Because especially in like the college level, like at the college level, you are expected to kind of advocate for yourself a bit. But be that as it may, there are also a lot of offices and stuff where you can reach out and be like, that's how you advocate for yourself. You reach out and then they will help you and point you to all the directions. So that was one thing, is that like I started reaching out and be like, I'm struggling with this. What do I do? And that was a first thing of like learning to ask for help. That was a big thing. This was one that I started and I still try to keep up. I've been pretty, actually, I think I've actually been pretty on top of it. Is that I've also been going to the gym a lot. A lot of people said I'm crazy for, I like going to the gym like, butt crack of dawn. Like literally when the gym opens, which my gym opens at 5 a.m. So I'll wake up before that and go out. And I that's been good for me because it is literally something that I just get out of bed and do.
Yeah.
It almost is like when it's so like habitual that I just do it, then like for my depression, a lot of it is just like taking that first step. Then it kind of just starts rolling and you can kind of get into it. But that first step feels impossible sometimes. The gym kind of helped just be like, go to the gym, come back, see how you feel. And that was a big thing. And it's not even like when I was first doing it, I went really hard, like full body every day.
Yeah.
But now it's like, even just getting up, driving the car, going to the gym, doing whatever you can, even if just like a single workout, a single set. I think you've even mentioned that before in like an episode or something like that. If I remember correctly, but just doing a small thing and then getting back, it's like that helped. That helped a lot. Like just being able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Just one step. And specifically like on the gym topic, it helps motivate other things that you don't necessarily think of as well. But going to the gym, like it forces you to drink water. That's something that like, because like you're there, you fill up your water bowl and you're like, yeah, I'll just drink it. And it literally forces you to do that, which is something that when you are really depressed, really in the down, like trench part of where you are, it's like, that's something you forget to do. Like feeding yourself, drinking, showering, all these things. The gym does a lot of that because it makes you hungry, it makes you thirsty, and then you get back, you're like, I'll take a shower. It's like, and I understand this is also very personal for me because some people hate the gym and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I go do it and it literally forces me to do all these things, and I personally do feel good doing it because I feel myself getting stronger or being able to have more cardio or do things for longer. Ball was also part of that as well because I was like, I feel I can literally see myself getting better, and I'm like, this feels good.
Yeah, no, I resonate with that. For me, I always have to start off my day like going to the gym. It just gets momentum, right? My blood is flowing. I recently started taking pre-workout, which, dude, I feel like I've become a drug addict because there were cycles where I was recommended by one of the guests on the episode, Zach, and he said like, oh, like you should do pre-workout in cycles so that way you're not so addicted to it or your body becomes accustomed to it. I don't know. Have you tried pre-workout before?
No, I'm pretty sure it's just caffeine though. Right?
Yeah, no, it's just a shitload of caffeine. But I remember like taking it for the first time, like, dude, this is crazy. Like my nerves are like tingling and stuff like that. But then like it just makes you feel like, are you familiar with the anime like Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just feels like I'm going Super Saiyan. And like I'm just like lifting a lot heavier. But in the times that I don't do it, I'm like lethargic and I'm like, shit. I was like, I need it. I need my pre-workout so I could do it. But then I realized that like about how like, it's not really needed. It's just like, kind of like on your head. Side tangent on pre-workout there. But it does give me more momentum, especially when I wake up early to gym because I'm like, okay, now I'm on this mindset of like, okay, I'm focused. I'm dialed in. I'm locked into whatever I'm doing, whether it's gym. I want to come back and like start to do work. And I put like a lot of emphasis on creating structure on my life. But for those days that I don't go to the gym, it's like I don't know what I'm doing. Like my head is like all over the place. So like, oh, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. But it's all about, like you said, that first step. It's impossible. But if you have something to allow yourself to take that first step, it's huge. And I feel like that is, like you said, the momentum to to be on a growth path and to help your mind get healthier and better. Yeah. So I know you mentioned that how something that really helped you is asking help for others.
Yeah.
For those that where they have that block of not being able to ask others, what is something you would say to them to help them, get over that mental block?
Yeah, I don't know. It's once again, this is the math of me. I don't want to make like generalized statements because I understand everyone's experience is different, and I don't want to say something that might not work, and then like the whole comparison to medication, right? I don't want to say something where it doesn't work, and then it's like, worse spot. But I guess
it could help someone.
It could help someone as well.
Yes,
That's the thing.
yes.
It's like, I guess on that point though, is that it's figuring out who you should ask, because I know for myself, obviously I was talking to my sister almost all the time about this. But it's about like understanding who you are and who you can ask. Because I mentioned asking like offices and like the college and stuff like that. And that felt easier to me than like going to a friend, which I know for some people might be the opposite, because like talking to a stranger versus talking to someone you're close with. I found it harder to ask friends for help sometimes because it would feel like I'm burdening them. And, it's once again the double-edged sword of having people care about you. It makes it feel worse for me anyway. When I know people care, I'm like, damn, but I'm not getting better. So they're caring for, basically their care is going nowhere and I feel like I'm draining it from them or whatever, like a leech of some sort.
Yeah.
But I realized that like, these offices, it's their job to be there and to support you. And so it almost feels easier for me to be like, I'm struggling, what do I do? And asking them for help. And while I don't want to like say that they're uncaring.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to like paint that picture. It's just because they don't know you personally, it's like they'll just look at you as like, okay, yeah, let me help you, and then see what I can do to help you. And then you feel like you won't stick in their mind, basically, I guess, too much, and they're just there to help you. So I guess the point I'm trying to say is that understand who you want to ask help from. Like think of like this requires some soul searching and stuff, but like if it's easier to ask like a stranger for help, or like once again a college office, or I guess in work like it would be HR or something like that. If it's easier to ask that someone there for help rather than someone close or even just like a friend, just try it. Like figure out who would be easier to ask help for help, and then that makes asking help for help from everyone else easier. It's once again the first step thing, is that like take that first step, ask someone for help, and you realize, okay, maybe I can ask someone else for help and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's also trial and tribulations too, right? So you figure out who, like, you could confide in someone, and you kind of figure out that they don't make you feel as, like, don't make you, not that they have to make you feel good on the outside, but you should feel supported, right? Because the reason why I kind of went back and forth on that is because you want someone to be real with you, right? But also their words and how they know you. Like, there are people that are trustworthy with that information versus others are maybe not the best. So kind of working in and out, or trying like, oh, like, hey, like, this is how I'm feeling. Like, what do you think? If they give you a response that you don't really resonate with or can really reflect on, then you kind of know that person's not someone to ask for help in, right?
Yeah.
And I know I've also had my own trials and tribulations too, of telling people stuff and then it coming back around where something bad happened, where they just ended up either telling someone else, or what they said didn't really help me. Whether that was like something that is either bare minimum or just didn't make me feel good after, regardless, even if it was the truth, right?
Yeah.
So the thing I also want to get into is, you mentioned about this kind of mindset of finding a passion in our life, and also trying new things, which is a mindset that you felt like was discouraged. So I kind of want to dive into, I guess, you trying new things, but then like how that makes you feel, but also like why you feel like it's a mindset that's being discouraged on.
I do think it's discouraged a lot, especially with, like we mentioned before, at the ripe old age of 17, 18, you are meant to be like, what college you going to? What major are you doing? It's like you're asked to figure out all these decisions so early on in life. And even at a younger age, as harmless a question as it is, and once again, I know it's completely harmless. I'm not trying to be like preschool teachers are out to get you or whatever. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Stuff like that. And, that's just, it's not a bad question to ask, but it's this question that's asked at such a young age. It's like, how are you supposed to know what you're supposed to want to be when you, like, I remember saying I wanted to be an astronaut, a singer, I think a firefighter at one point. And, the fact that I'm saying all these things is kind of bringing me to my next point, is that doing a lot of things is also fine.
Yeah.
And the whole system of like choosing a major, focusing on that, getting good at that one thing, and then going into a job that's focused on that, it's like, that's like the path that almost everyone envisions.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. I won't say everyone, but it's like, that's discouraging to be like, let's figure out new things. And even when I went to college, I went in going as a psych major, which surprises a lot of people. I remember reading a joke that it was like, no, you don't. It was like some sort of meme about like, no, you don't want to be a psych major. You're just depressed. And I'm like, and I was just like, damn, how
real is that? Jesus.
I was like, damn, you got me. But I was like, yeah, that was me. I went into college. I was a psych major.
Yeah.
And then I switched over immediately to math, which I really love math. But it's just that the reason why I chose math as well is because it's flexible. It's applicable. You can do a lot of things with it. And I just feel that the current system of focusing on one thing in your life, becoming very good at that's just how we're raised to think, and that discourages trying new things.
Yeah.
And I just don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with it either. Like, we're always changing, right? One day we could like something, and then another day we don't. And that's how I felt with my recent job change. I went from the first job out of college, and I was gonna go on that path for, well, now would have to been another 2 years because of the monetization, because of the incentive at the end of it. But dude, like, when I had realized that like I needed a change in my life, and especially about passion too, it was such a hard thing to go through, because I was like, oh, like, am I gonna stay, within accounting and all that stuff, and where do I want to go next? And obviously, after a conversation with friends, like, I'm still staying in accounting now, but how do I add something in my life that kind of provides servicing other people, because I do like to help others too. And I felt the same way. I was discouraging myself on like, oh, you can't change on this pathway because this is what you've been planning since the age of 8. Like literally planning at such a young age, and then the fact that I had to throw away my life's plan was very hard for me to understand. But as I reflected more on it, and change is good, because you don't, whatever you are changing, right? That thing could be the thing that has given you like the life that you so envision and want. And yes, change is super scary for sure. Yeah. When human nature, we're dealing with change, it's like we all like run around in flames and all that stuff. But it's like, it takes time to understand. And either way, when you decide to make that change, you understand that you either like that change or you don't, but you won't know unless you try it, right? And then I agree with you. It's just like the fact that we have to choose something that we're gonna do for the rest of our lives at such a young age, and a time that we're developing. Like, our frontal lobe's not even developing, right? Yeah. And it's hard, and it's discouraging too. I know my parents definitely had a lot my brother when he was changing his majors, and I know my brother was trying to figure out himself, but because he had to make quick decisions in order to finish his like college degree, it was hard for him. And even now, like I feel like him and other people are still trying to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives. But isn't that a crazy thing to say? What you want to do for the rest of your life?
I mean, yeah, that is crazy, and it actually helped because I had a history professor, or not, well, I guess not history teacher in high school who did want to remind us all going out of high school into college. There was like, remember that college, like reminding us the original purpose of college, like when it was first conceived, was to try new things, which is not kind of what it is now. Like now it is very much like figure out what your major is and get very good at it.
Yeah.
But like when it like historic, like in like ancient Greece or wherever the idea of college first started, it was to try everything, which led to like the idea of brief history lesson, I guess, whatever, but led to the idea of like this Renaissance man, right, of like where you just try everything and you get good at a lot of things and stuff like that. And it was that teacher was the one person that reminded me of that, and I was just like, and I guess that helped being like kind of solidify the idea of like, yeah, you know what, it's fine to still try to be figuring out.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of the original purpose of it, is like to figure out things.
That's so cool. I didn't know that before.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's once again lost of time, and that's why it's like it's a bit disheartening because the original purpose of college was to expand your knowledge and learn new things, not necessarily learn one thing.
Yeah.
Very well.
For sure. And I know, we've talked a lot about your depression and your struggles. And again, man, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you are working on it. However, me or the community can help you, like definitely let us know. It's definitely a long journey. It's not, it's not something that happens overnight, but I'm rooting in your corner, and whatever I can do, just let me know. And hopefully those words stuck through, your depression barrier. But
yeah,
man, I think you're doing great things and onto a great path. So keep doing what you're doing, and however I can help, just let me know.
Yeah, it's weird to say this because like no, it's the reason why I think it's so helpful to hear people say that is that it might not necessarily be that day that you remember someone saying that. It's maybe another day down the line where you're like, oh yeah, I remember, Randy saying this to me, and I'm like, maybe I'll reach out to him. It's like, and I think that's the thing that makes it so hard is that when you hear these things in the moment, you may not feel it at all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to, it's kind of hard to basically bank on it. Like, oh, but further down the line, knowing someone's got my back, that's nice to know. And yeah, I guess I thank you, first of all. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's, yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to say is that it's, if you're, reaching out or providing someone support and they don't necessarily reciprocate it immediately, or it doesn't necessarily help them immediately, it's still a good thing to do because it very well, I can't speak right now. Sorry. It will help them down the road. It's most likely to help them down the road somewhere.
Yeah.
And just doing that is very kind of you to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, whatever. It's just like, just hearing that there is a support or help means a lot. Because if you keep that inside and someone may need it, like it just doesn't allow them to understand that, there is good and positive lights around them, right?
Yeah.
So, Wayland, you mentioned that, you got into teaching and, there was a reason why you got into it. Do you mind just elaborating on that?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is that like I have beef with a lot of past teachers, I guess. Like I just remember like I could have done that better. And it just that's basically it, is that like I mentioned before, is that depression came up in high school with like schoolwork and stuff like that. And at my high school, academics was pushed very heavily by some teachers more than others. And it's those some teachers that I don't really like that much. I'm like, I understand, especially now going through it, I understand that academics are important, and it's good to try. It's good to like put effort into things. It's good to be able to have that ability to put effort into things. But I don't think you should be, destroying your life for it. You mentioned, you mentioned like getting barely any sleep for school, and it's like, some of that is internal. I can't speak on your part, but I know that for some teachers, they almost incentivize it, or they're like, yeah, that's normal. That's how you should be doing schoolwork. And I was just like, at the time I was like, I guess that is. And that's kind of what made it even feel worse when I went into depression. I was like, this is what I should be doing. Like, teachers are kind of like, they wouldn't be unreasonable, right? There's no way the teacher's being unreasonable. It's just, I should be able to handle this amount. And it's like, sometimes you can't, and that's fine. And I just feel like I had a lot of problem with teachers where like I wouldn't be able to approach them about it either. And that's another thing, is that like teachers like play such an important role in like making sure kids grow up and understand things, and they don't destroy themselves with schoolwork, I guess. And it's like I was like, I can do that better. That's all.
Yeah.
I feel that. Also, there's just things about the topic I care about the most in math in particular.
Yeah.
Is that I feel it's a bit misunderstood sometimes, because it's often, it's it's the M part of STEM, right? And it's like often viewed as this very rigorous and very serious and harsh and cold and calculating field. And I think that's partially due to how we teach math. And I think that turns a lot of people away from it, or makes them think that they can't do math or something. In particular, there was a summer program I taught, which was like a bridge program for UMass Boston. So basically, people who didn't score high enough on like their tests or whatever to get in, they were given this opportunity to like take this summer program. If they pass it, then they get accepted. So conditional acceptance. And I was like, that's dope. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And something we learned about that during that, like in the lessons and stuff, is this reverence towards math, of like being like, a lot of professors and stuff will be approached, or they'll be asked and be like, oh yeah, I have my PhD in math, or I studied math. And there are almost two immediate reactions of like, oh, it's like, oh, so you must be very smart, or oh, I was never really good at math. And he was like, I'm not good at it. And it's like
the typical response you get is, oh, I was never good at math.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, and it's like this almost apologetic for not being good at math. It's like, no, it's like, it's not for everyone. That's fine. But you should, it's like, I guess I just want to like try to make people not view math like that. Like, I think, I think there's a lot of aspects about it that are beautiful, that are, that even make you think in a better way. I keep referencing this idea of like not speaking in absolutes. And that for me came from like math, because there is, in math, there's these things called proofs, where basically you make statements, and then from those statements you make other statements. But every single statement you make, you have to be 100% about it. And that's why there's so many qualifiers and so many, like, specifically in this one case, in this, set of numbers, this rule works.
Okay.
It's been about being very specific with your statements and understanding that generalizing things is very difficult to do.
So that's why you don't like generalizing.
I don't like generalizing things. It's like, because once again, it applies to real life, because you can't generalize anyone's life. You can't generalize a human being. Like, everyone is so unique and different. But when I say that, it's like people will not be like, oh yeah, you got that from math. You'd be like, oh, that's like a sociology point, or like a philosophy point. And to my point on that, it's that, math can be related to many different things. It's Yeah, I've just been talking about math. I'm sorry.
No. You're applying it to like how we can learn it from life. No, I find this very interesting.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, but like yeah, but basically that's it though. Is that like people just have this wrong image about it, and I think it's the education aspect of it where it is very much viewed as a tool to advance your career, to do well, and once again that's at the lower levels, because once I went into college I met so many professors who are more of this academia based like mindset of like, yeah, math is beautiful, can do all these different things, and it makes you view the world in different ways. And I was like, that sucks that kids aren't exposed to that at a younger age.
Yeah.
Because then it pushes forth this narrative of like, it's not meant for you. It's too hard for you or something like that. It's like, no, maybe you just weren't taught it right, or maybe you think differently in a different way. That was also a big part of the DSP program that I taught, which was the bridge program. I feel like I didn't mention it, but the name of it. But it was understanding that people just do math differently as well.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You should embrace that and not punish that there's not one right way of doing it. Yeah, I guess that's why I kind of am so...
Well, you got into math.
I got so into math, and specifically the whole teaching aspect is that
Yeah.
I want people to understand that, maybe some genius future mathematician would be disparaged from math because of an early experience. And I'm just like, that would suck. Maybe their passion didn't click with them because it was taught the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can teach that, or at least try to approach that. There's only so much one person can do. I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think has been the most rewarding about, your teaching experience?
I mean, it has been just that, is that understanding how other like students think, is that you just see how their mind works, and they once again gain more confidence in their own abilities, which is something, once again, I feel like current education kind of makes students not feel like confidence in their own abilities to do things.
Yeah.
Like,
especially with math.
Yeah. But in general, it's like, I don't know. It's just, I just feel almost just saddened, I guess, a little bit by seeing people turned off by math. And I think in particular my tutoring experience has been like that, because it's always a one-on-one experience, and I get to like work with one student at a time, and I see how they think, and it's rewarding to see like, oh, that's how they think, and now they understand this concept because it was presented in a different way.
The breakthrough moment. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's very rewarding. It's nice to see that.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it's kind of crazy that we always hear this new phrase nowadays, that they change math. But I think I got that from, have you watched Incredibles 2?
Math is math.
Yeah.
Math is math.
Yeah. And like how like with Michelle's like nieces, like they're doing math homework, and I'm like, this is how they do it now? Like, that's not, but it just goes to show what you said about how there's different ways to do it. And that kind of shows an analogy to life, because there's different ways of solving a problem, or going about life. There isn't one way for you to stick with, and this is the correct pathway that's for you. Yeah.
And I think specifically on the topic of like learning math, once again, I can't really speak for common, or like the common education system in general. We're also in Massachusetts, which is generally a better public education state. But it's like, I just feel like it's just not being taught the right way, especially at the basics level. And that's the whole thing, is that like basically every subject you go into, you need basics and foundations to then build upon. That goes for, writing, that goes for math, that goes for like music, goes for anything really.
Yeah.
And the basics are not being taught properly, so things can't be built upon them. And I just think that having the whole Incredibles thing is that like with math is like there are different ways,
Yeah.
and I think textbook writers and everyone are so bent on trying to find the right way, and I don't necessarily think there is a right way. Maybe there's more efficient ways,
Yeah.
but that kind of speaks to this societal thing of like the most efficient way of doing something, the most efficient way of like you're wasting time, you got to rise and grind. All this, it all ties together like that, and it just
Yeah.
like sometimes taking a step back, doing it how you feel, and doing it the way and it might not be the most efficient. It might not be the quote unquote best, whatever that means, but it just you got it done,
Yeah.
and that's the important part. It ties back to once again everyone's timelines and stuff like that. You're expected to be on the most efficient, get it done, get a job, keep going. It's like, no, do it your way, figure it out, and go from there. You got to be loose and flexible. Life is crazy. It just, yeah. The rigidity of math, basically, how it is presented right now, it bothers me so much.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. And I like how you've played that into life itself because of how we grow up and how you need to have a job by this age. You need to be married by this age, have a house at that age. There's so much rigidness to it. But if we are flexible and more loose with it, then we can, life can flow a lot more easier without a lot of frustration and rage. And dude, I think you just show me how math just like really is important to our lives in that sort of sense. And it's important to my life. I'm freaking doing accounting. So math, regardless, it's not in the complex math, but regardless, like I need to do that to do my job. So man, I think before we get into song association, I just want to say, thank you for coming on and how courageous and brave you are to come on and talk about your experiences. And I know you're still going through it, but you are on a better path now, and I feel like you have given advice to our viewers and listeners about what they can do to help them on their journeys, especially with depression and just bettering their mental health. So thank you, man, and I'm so glad I got to know a little bit more about you, and thank you for teaching me how math can play a huge role in our life.
Well, I mean, thank you for having me. I'm glad to have hopefully partake, or I can't even. What's the word I'm trying to? Impart. I keep saying partake and impart. I'm happy to have like imparted possibly something that helps, and I guess I'm just happy to be able to do that, and this is once again like, not to sound selfish, but this is once again just as much as for me as it is for everyone else, because I think that being able to open up and stuff about anything or what's on your mind is always helpful. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And you're welcome back anytime. All right, so let's get into song association. If you're not familiar with this game, basically we give each other one word, and we basically have to associate that with a song lyric or song title. Usually people play it with song title, but I'm not gonna keep us rigid in that sort of sense. So the word that I actually was thinking about for you is lose.
Oh man, I mean, the first song that came to mind immediately, which is not, which is very funny because I feel like some people will immediately think of this as well, because I thought of "Lose Yourself"
by Eminem.
by Eminem.
Yeah. You were belching that. You had the whole crowd going.
I know
at
a lot of
Billy
people.
and Tara's wedding.
Everyone associates me with that.
Why is that actually?
I love him. I'm a big Eminem fan.
Yeah.
And I've always been the big Eminem fan.
Yeah.
And I just immediately associated with that, mainly, title, obviously, "Lose Yourself."
Right.
Yeah.
So I can give you a different word if that would be a more challenging or better.
It's up to you. Like, I'm trying to think, is that But now I think it might be skewed because now Eminem's on my mind. And I'll just be like going through the archives and be like, oh yeah, that song.
Okay. Let me challenge you a bit here. I'm gonna give you. Let's see. Damn. Run.
The thing is, I'm also terrible with titles.
It's okay.
I'm terrible.
It's also
with
song lyrics too.
Yeah, but like I don't even know the. It's because it's like using like memes or whatever. It's like the run.
Oh no! I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, but I'm like that's what I think of immediately. And I'm
Yeah.
I don't even know the title. I'm just like run. It might be just called Run. I don't know.
It could be.
It's just an electronic song that's like intense. That's all. Like,
how long ago? How many years ago was that meme? I can't remember.
I cannot.
Yeah.
Probably. It's probably middle school.
Yeah. All the videos are popping in my head again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry to give you some bad ones.
They're not bad. I think this is how my mind works.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's your chance to give me a word and see what I can come up with. Do not give me super fragilistic, which is a song in itself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Sturdy.
Sturdy. I know. All I know is the dance. Is that associated to the song? Is it?
I don't even know the dance.
I don't even know. I do know the dance, but I don't know if that's even a song. Sturdy. There's definitely a song that's like. It's probably just like get sturdy. That's
sturdy.
That's all I could think of. Now I'm super curious, guys. If you know a song with sturdy in it, maybe if I'm lack of pop culture, but put your comments down below.
I mean,
I'm slumped. I'm slumped there.
I'm more lack of pop culture anyway. Because you mentioned like social media before. I'm like, I use social media even less. I'm an old man when it comes to social media.
Hey man, there's benefits to it. I know a lot of people that have gone, total social media cleanse, and they've said a lot of great things.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I hope that was a little bit fun for you. All right, Wayland. So we actually have some questions from the audience that I will go ahead and bring up right now. So Tara's question to you is, what do you consider to be your top priority in life?
Just be happy, be content. Like it is to be that, whatever that it entails. Cause I don't know what that entails at all. Like, because most people or a lot of people think that like being happy in life is doing something you love and being able to survive off that. And I think that's completely true. I'm hoping that's what teaching is. I don't know until I try it. But yeah, I guess it's just be happy, be stable, be able to do things in life that I enjoy. I enjoy doing a lot of different things, and I guess just being able to enjoy life. Depression does not help with that, obviously, but getting to that point of just being like, today is a fine day. Let's do this. Let's go to my job. Let's do whatever. And be at the end of the day, just be like, yeah, that was fine. That was fine. I don't have to be ecstatic every day. I don't have to be excited or whatever. Just find a place where I'm comfortable.
Yeah, no, for sure. And not, like you said, not every day is going to be the same.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, we can only control what we can and put ourselves in the best position to feel happy. So thank you for insighting that.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into the big three questions.
Sure.
These are 3 questions that I feel like can leave an impact on our viewers. And the first question I have for you is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
The thing is, I knew this question was coming up too because I watched episodes and I know these are questions, but I'm like, I should think about it, and I just didn't think about it because also I don't.
I'm getting the raw, real emotions here. Nothing planned.
Yeah, the problem is that like I don't have a lot of self-compassion, as I've stated. I also don't like younger me a lot.
That's okay.
Like I think there's a lot, like obviously you have to grow up a lot and it's this stuff like that. And there's so many things I'm like, why'd you do that? Like,
Oh,
that's so
we've
suspect.
all had those moments. My
Yeah,
God, we've all
yeah,
had those
yeah,
moments.
yeah. I know. It's more than just like cringe or whatever. It's just like you're so. That's a stupid way of thinking, and it didn't help you. But whatever. I think if I had to, you said question, right?
Advice. What advice would you
advice.
give? Yeah, yeah.
Don't be nervous and just try new things. I feel like a lot in the past I got nervous, like lack self confidence and stuff like that, and it stopped me from doing certain things. And I was like, I think I would have enjoyed that. The two examples on my mind are always like in middle school, I would have loved to do choir more. I only did it my final year because I finally built up enough confidence to go to the audition. And I was like, oh, I should have done choir all 3 years in middle school because I enjoy that. And it kind of goes into high school of like I should have just joined the drama club because I
Yeah.
was like I also enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
Like, but I only did it my last year. I literally only did the last play of my senior year.
That's crazy.
Well, I did the musical, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I was just like, I feel like I could have enjoyed this, but I just never worked up the courage to try it. So just try it.
Yeah.
And that's something I guess I would say for most people as well. Just try it. Especially in I feel like I'm gonna ramble on forever.
No, go ahead.
No, because I was like, just try it. In special, like I've helped people like just be like, especially for like repairing your own things, saves money. It's better for the environment, stuff like that. You should just try it. Look up a guide or don't be nervous. As much as all these big companies are trying to be anti-consumer and make things harder to repair,
Yeah.
they're still repairable. Just try it. If you're that nervous, that's fine. Don't go out of your comfort zone. But you could also ask someone for help in that case. Because I've helped people like fix their Joy-Cons or like laptop or whatever. And I'm like, it's not that hard. And I show, and it's a learning moment. And just try it. That's all.
No, I mean, no, for sure. I feel the same way as you. I feel like in high school. So I played tennis my last year. And I wish I really enjoyed it. And I wish I did that for all 4 years. I wish I was also a triathlete. Yeah. So every season there, obviously focus on basketball. And yeah, there was other things I never built the courage to do too. And I feel like that was more in like my dating scene, social life, stuff like that, because I lacked confidence in myself and who I was. But when I found out that like, when I knew that like, no, I need to come in with everything, like a lot of confidence, and that led me to Michelle. So that's how, if I didn't have that, I'm not sure. I mean, I think eventually I would have, asked her out, but I don't think it would happen as quickly as I did. So yeah, just have faith in yourself, try new things, that's what life is. Trials and tribulations to understand who you are as a person and kind of what path you want to pay for yourself. So my second question for you is, what does becoming the highest version of yourself mean to you, and how are you doing that today?
Yeah. Once again, I should have prepared because I was like,
It's okay.
yeah. No,
We're getting the raw realness right
I
here.
know.
That's what I like.
I know, but I was like, I literally know these are the big three questions. I know these are the questions, and I was like, yeah, I won't think about them at all. I'll deal with it when I get to it. Highest version. I don't know if there's necessarily a highest version, I guess I could say. It's like, because perfection is basically unattainable. It's like there's always things to improve, but I think my highest version, quote unquote, I guess would be being okay with that and being able to just be like, yeah, it's okay to not be the best at everything, be on top of everything all the time, just be okay with where you're at currently. And yeah, I think that's kind of it, is that I want to get to a place where emotionally and like internally I'm content and even happy with where I'm at. Sorry, that's like so generic or not generic, but like amorphous, because it's not really specific, because I don't know I don't necessarily know what to do to attain that, or what for me what that would be.
It's okay.
Yeah, because I think like I also think that everyone is always striving to getting better, which is a good thing. Yeah, I just don't know what that entails, I guess. Just being okay with knowing that you're not on top of everything, you're not the best at everything, you're not even necessarily good at everything, but just being okay with that and being like, maybe I'll try to get better, or maybe I'll try to get good, or just something like
For sure.
just that would probably be the highest version. Being okay with everything that's going around.
So how are you, I guess, going into 2025, on this year, how are you doing that? What plans do you have to kind of keep yourself growing?
Yeah.
I know you mentioned the gym, which is great.
Gym, yeah. I am going back to school to finish undergrad, so hopefully that's been a big thing on my shoulders for a while now, weighing on me. And I had, all things going to plan, this will be last semester, so we'll see.
And for context, because I don't think the viewers know how old are you or where that journey is. Can you give quick context on why that's such a big thing for you right now?
Yeah. So I turned 26 recently, which is which is just a whole host of things. Like, for one thing, getting off parents' insurance is one thing. It's just like, that's fine, but whatever. But basically, it's just, once again, at this point, I am just a lot older than people who go to college. That's all. And it just feels sometimes a little bit weird. It feels difficult to do that. And, I know that there's people that go back to college or take breaks and stuff like that, and myself being one of them. But yeah, I guess that's just the context of it, is that, like, if I were following that rigid structure of 4 years in college, I would have been graduated many years ago now. Obviously, COVID didn't help with that, because that didn't help anyone really. True. Anyone really in any aspect of their life. But yeah, it's been a long journey, I'll say. A lot of trying, maybe not getting there, making smaller steps than I would have wanted. And I guess it's all culminating now, right? Going back to being okay with the highest version is that it would be being okay with those small steps, because I took a break and I jumped back in. I was like, all right, let's get back into it. And that didn't work out. I had to take small steps to get back into it. And basically that's kind of it, is that, like, being okay with that, being okay with taking it slow sometimes, or not being, or not, I want to say not following expectations, even though these expectations, I don't even know if they're necessarily from other people or just from myself, it's just being okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, you're battling society expectations as well as
that's fair.
expectations as well.
That's fair. Yeah.
So anything else besides gymming, finishing undergrad? What else you got in store for this year?
I don't know. If I'm planning on going the teaching route, I have to do my MTELs, which I don't know why I'm kind of excited for. Maybe it's because I haven't taken a standardized test in forever.
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't know. But there's that. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I would actually say that, like, this podcast is actually part of it as well. Like, I think I mentioned before, but being able to open up more and being able to talk more about it and not be ashamed of any struggles or anything like that. Because that's something that I guess I've alluded to, is that, like, feeling shame and being like, why am I struggling still? Just being able to talk about that, that's also helping improve that. So
for sure. Yeah, man. I mean, our struggles are what bonds us together, and it's what makes for a good story coming out of, like, later in life. So I never want you to feel, especially on this podcast space, to feel like you can't express that, right? So yeah, man, best of luck on that journey, and I know it's all great things, and I think you're passionate about the MTEL just because I know you feel like it's a path that that you've been seeking for quite some time. So, yeah. So my last and final question for you is, if you could connect me with someone to come onto this podcast, and have them speak upon their experiences, who would it be and why?
That's hard. That's hard to say. Because a lot of them have already been on the podcast. I'll say that.
That's okay. You could call them out for round 2, but I definitely would like to hear someone that hasn't been on before.
Yeah. Actually, curiously enough. Oh God, cannot talk right now.
It's okay.
Curiously enough, I think my sister actually has some stuff to say, because I don't want to go into it too deeply because that's her stuff to tell, but she's dealt with things a lot, and she's very high achieving and stuff like that, and yet she's still had very very difficult moments, especially in the past few years, and which are basically like her entering the adult world, quote unquote. Yeah, I think she would have some curious things to say.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's make it happen. Anything you want to plug, Wayland, before we sign off here?
No, I can't think of anything.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it. The community is rooting for you on your journey, and I can't wait to touch base with you and see how it goes, especially while you're going through school and coming back. So, guys, if anything resonated with you, any clips, please share those clips. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and as always, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day, becoming the highest version of ourselves. Love you guys.